Alright guys, this time we're going to be working with a piece of 1045. It's 7 3/4 inches in diameter and it's 18.5 inches long. Yeah, we're going to use this thing to replace the wooden block in the power hammer. So it's time for an upgrade. Get rid of that old wooden block. We had a little incident with it a day or so ago. A chunk of hot steel fell down behind it, got caught, and kind of set it on fire. So time for an upgrade. We'll see if we can get a little more out of this hammer. Alright, so what we need to do is that weld right there. We need to cut that thing off all the way around, and we're going to remove that railroad plate, and it's going to drop the anvil down a little bit, so we'll have to compensate for that a little bit later. So let's get started. It was a little difficult getting around those bolts, so I had to pull the bolts out that were holding it in, like 6 inches long, and that came apart pretty quick and easy. But there's 2 railroad spikes holding that thing into that block of wood, and you can see how the back one's raised up. It just happens through normal vibration, and that wasn't too hard to get out. That front one, yeah, it was a little bit of a booger. Yeah, after a little bit of wiggling and prying, beating on it with a hammer, it finally worked its way out of there. So then I got after this thing with a cut-off wheel to get through that weld all the way around the bottom of this thing. It was welded on pretty good. It's good, I suppose. Anyway, I've got to weld this thing to the top of that 1045 anvil, and I've not welded to 1045 like that before, and I'm not sure. I've heard that it can crack if you don't weld it right or warm it up before you weld on it, that kind of thing. So I figured I'd run a couple of passes, warm it up real well, and then run another pass and burn it in really good. So we'll see what happens. So anyway, it took a couple of minutes and 2 cut-off wheels to get that thing off there and cut through that weld, but it eventually popped loose. And the thickness of that plate was lost, but the hammer still drops that far. But like I said, we're going to compensate for that anyway. So we ground a new bevel on the thing, cleaned up the bottom all the way around, in preparation to weld it onto its new anvil. So we can minimize some of that energy absorption of that wood. And we had a couple of more bolts in the bottom of it, coming in from the side on a couple of brackets that'll have to be removed. So at the bottom you can see where that fire got into that crack. That wasn't too hard to put out. This thing is heavy. Doesn't look like it would be, but man. And it's only like 4 inches up off the floor there, and I was worried about how I was going to get it up there, but it wasn't too difficult. So we knocked the brackets off and cleaned this area up, give ourselves a nice, smooth, clean welding surface. And at this point I realized there's a lot of rust. I should be wearing a mask. But we got it. It only took a minute. And trying not to smash any fingers or toes. There it is. all centered on the anvil, and like I said, I ran about 3 passes all the way around. The first one was just to warm up the steel and kind of get it held in place, and by the third one it was burning in pretty good, so it worked out. I think it'll stay there. I hope. A little bit of cleanup, a little bit of brush up, and I cut the last weld out on this thing simply because it's long and boring. And we cleaned up the bottom, get rid of the debris, and did the same thing there. Wiggle it all into place. And took the bolts out of the hammer and let it slide down and sit on top of that anvil so I could make sure that everything was lined up. A little wooden mallet. Actually moved it pretty good. Welded up the bottom. And we cut ourselves a pipe for a little support back to the back piece. I didn't want any wiggle out of that bottom plate. I wanted to keep it nice and stable. I figured it would dampen a little bit of the vibration. That large piece of steel has quite a ring to it, and this helped out quite a bit. But it definitely changed the tone of the whole machine. It's amazing how much force was being absorbed by that block of wood. There we go. So, to compensate for the loss of the height of the plate that's missing in there, I have another piece of railroad track that's just a little taller than that plate was thick. To get the hammer a little bit closer to the anvil, and I think I'll get a little bit better result. When I tap lightly with it, I would have just a little bit of a hard time controlling it because it would have to cycle so far down. But overall it's going to be not quite a half inch taller than it was, and that piece of track on the bottom is a little wider than the other one was, a little more substantial, and it adds a couple of pounds. So the new anvil is 287 pounds, and the smaller portion on top is just about 33 pounds. So that gets us up to 320, and then our chunk of railroad track is just about 5 pounds. We're at about a 325 pound anvil at this point, which is pretty good. The hammer on this thing, the hammer weight, the slide and everything with the brackets on it, weighs just over 25 pounds. So our ratio should be right in there. So that's it. It looks pretty good, and I think it'll do much better than with that block of wood in there. Just working with the thing, tapping on it, you could tell that the weight of the entire machine just sounded heavier. is cool. So we'll give it a try here. So we got a piece of 5/8 inch round. Just gonna square it off with this thing real quick. See how that works out. And I'm not giving it the full weight of the hammer. Just kind of tapping it out there. See how it works? It's definitely got a different tone to it. You can definitely feel that impact of that hammer a lot more. And it did a pretty good job. And that was about half pedal. I'll give it a good test here and go full throttle on the thing. See what it does at the end of this thing. And it seems to forge that out pretty darn quick. A pretty good job. Brought that thing down to a taper pretty darn quick. I wanted to see how it would do on a nice light touch around the corners over here a little bit. And it works perfectly. Very happy with this. That steel colder like that, it seems to move it pretty well. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Please comment, let me know what you think, and if you like it, click like and share. I appreciate it. Be safe guys, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.